Hello, nerds. I stumbled upon this great article on 538.com, and I wanted to unbox what they call the fifth Democratic debate in 6 charts. So let's look at it together. This chart shows how favorably primary voters felt about each candidate before the debate and how well they thought each candidate did. So what you generally want is you want to be kind of above this trend line. You want to have like whatever your pre-debate favorability is, you want to be considered like super high performance. And if you're below this trend line, that means like, well, people were pretty favorable about you, but then you did like really bad. So as you can see here, Gabbard had kind of neutral to less than neutral support before the debate, but people thought her debate performance was it wasn't even close to neutral. It was just bad. And so that was a tough night for Tulsi. Biden also had a tough night. He has some favorable sentiment before the debate, but people thought his performance was below neutral. Yang was a little bit above the neutral line and then a little bit below the neutral line. So you could argue like, wow, it would have been great for him to do better. But it seems like everybody did a little bit less well than their pre-debate favorability. Who did the best? Who kind of had the best performance? Buttigieg, Warren, and Sanders generally kind of fit the trend. They had great favorability before going in, and their performance was considered above neutral. Booker also did pretty well. Harris did pretty well. The people who did the worst were Gabbard, then Steyer, then Biden. So those were the three losers. The three winners were Buttigieg, Warren, and Sanders. So that's kind of interesting in terms of comparing how well they were liked before the debate and how well people thought they did. TLDR for Yang is, I think he had a solid night. Just the fact that people saw him as a win for us, given that we don't get coverage. I've done streams about why he should have gotten more questions. I'm not going to dwell on that one. How did people's preference for candidates change depending on how well they wanted to just beat Trump? So on this right column here, you see for the people who just care about beating Trump, they actually preferred Buttigieg, Warren, and Sanders pretty highly. You see Yang doesn't really change whether they care about issues or just beating Trump. But you see here, a lot of people who support Buttigieg are mainly doing it because they think he can beat Trump, because they're not doing it as much because they agree with him on issues. Interestingly enough, Warren, they think, can beat Trump, even though, as you guys know from this channel, I have serious, grave concerns about Warren in the general election. Sanders, a little bit more. Let's look at the opposite. Who does better on similar issue positions, but less on ability to beat Trump? Gabbard. So a lot of people like her positions. They don't think she can beat Trump. 2.3 on positions, 2.0 on ability to beat Trump. Everybody else looks like Yang is just tied. Whether you care about issues or being Trump, you support him. Saying everybody else gets a little bit of a bump in terms of favorability. Who gets the biggest bump? It might be Buttigieg and Booker. They both get 0.4 on a percentage basis. Booker gets the biggest bump on ability to beat Trump. But people seem to think that Buttigieg has a better chance of beating Trump than Booker. So that's a interesting take on whether or not people will favor a candidate more depending on whether they're voting just on issues or ability to beat Trump. TLDR is everybody gets a little bump except for Gabbard, who they like her more on positions but are concerned about ability to beat Trump, and Yang, who is tied. Whether people care about issues or Trump, he gets the same amount of support. Buttigieg gets a beat Trump boost, and almost everybody else gets a beat Trump boost. But Buttigieg gets a nice big one, and probably Booker gets the biggest as a percentage basis. Net favorability before and after the debate. Oh, yeah, baby. This is the chart we wanted to see. Okay. So before the debate, he had a favorability rating, Yang, of 12.4%, and after 17. So the biggest absolute point increase. So going from 12 to 17, love it. Klobuchar, 10 to 14, also a nice jump. in some ways a bigger jump as a percentage of the pre-debate than Yang. So both Yang and Klobuchar had great favorability changes. Buttigieg a little bit, not as much of a jump, only 2.9 percentage points and less than 10% bump from previous, whereas Klobuchar had almost a 40% jump and Yang had a 30% jump. Warren, a slight bump. Who got hurt? Gabbard dropped from 12% favorable to 17. Biden dropped from 48 to 45, or 47.8 to 44.5, if you want to be precise. Steyer, kind of the same, although you could argue going from 1.2 to 2.1, he had a nice, as a percentage, almost doubled his support. So, kudos to Steyer, but going from 1 to 2, not as nice as us going from 12 to 17. In terms of absolute points. So I would say in terms of net favorability, the big winners were clearly Yang and Klobuchar, big loser Gabbard and Biden. Who spoke the most? Well, we know this one. We're at the bottom, even though we are polling number 6 or number 5, depending on what you're looking at. And look at this, man. Booker spoke the 4th most number of words, even though he's basically trailing everyone and behind Yang. Crazy. Warren spoke more than anyone else. So here's words spoken compared to polling average. You see words spoken, Corey has almost twice as many words spoken as Yang, even though he's polling behind. Thank you, MSNBC. You guys are pieces of work. Who talked about Trump the most? Buttigieg, Harris, and Sanders. Yang did not. I think what's a well understood thing that Yang believes that talking about Trump is not a good use of our energy. I will say I disagree with him a little bit on this one. I think this election is more about replacing Trump than anything else. To me, that's the most important thing. I would love to hear him talk about it. I think it did help Buttigieg in terms of winning over people who value beating Trump, but obviously that's a strategy decision. Okay, so those were the 6 charts about the 5th Democratic debate on the 538 blog. Love those guys at 538. They love pulling data. Makes it fun to shoot these videos. If you find this kind of video useful and you want to stay on top of what's going on with the presidential campaign, the Democratic primary, and of course, if you're interested in Andrew Yang, please subscribe and share this video. Subscribe to the channel and comment below. Let me know what you think on what we should do to get ready for the next debate. Do you think Yang should change his strategy? Do you think he should go more on the aggressive kind of offense? I do, but I'd be curious what you guys think as well. Keep it real. Goodbye, nerds.